Hi everyone, it's Mr. Easter of course, and right now we're going to go over the differences and similarities between the clarinet and the trumpet. This is typically aimed just at the intro to band kids, but it's possible that I'll have the making music kids and all the other band kids and the choir kids take the quiz because, of course, you need to know, any musician, all musicians need to know the various instruments of the orchestra and of the band. It's basic knowledge that you need to know. So when you look in Schoology, it'll tell you whether or not, suppose you're in, eighth grade band, do you really have to take the test on the differences and similarities between clarinet and trumpet. So pay attention to that. But definitely intro to band kids, you need to see and hear this stuff. So the first thing I want to direct your attention to are these YouTubes. You just click on them. Let's see, I think you go control. Yeah, there we go. Well, you know what? I already have it up here. I'll show you. This is a clarinet first lesson YouTube that was made by a District 279 band director that used to be at Osseo High School for many years, and he teaches you, your first lesson. You'll watch that. So if you don't really know what a clarinet is like, he shows you about a reed. He shows you have to blow hard, stuff like that. So everybody watch that one if you're going to take the test. Certainly everybody in Intro to Band. And the other one, this is Mr. Wade Schroeder, who is the current band director over at Park Center Senior High. He's showing you the first lesson on the trumpet. So if you don't really understand what they look like, you don't really know anything about them, be sure to watch these videos and you'll know something. And even if you already know what they look like and what they sound like, you probably should watch the videos if you're in Intro to Band. All right, we'll go back to the paper here. Okay, so here's the clarinet column, here's the trumpet column, and then here's the both column. They have a lot of similarity. Okay, a clarinet is a woodwind. Clarinets now, inexpensive clarinets are made of plastic, but the really expensive ones are made of wood, and years ago, they were all made of wood. So they're in the same family with the flute, the oboe, the saxophone, and the bassoon. The trumpet is a brass instrument. That shiny gold metal that a lot of trumpets are made of is brass. A lot of keys are made of brass, and that's so they don't rust in your pocket. So a trumpet can't rust. It can corrode if it's not taken care of and cleaned and stuff like that. It can still get all icky. It's in the same family as the French horn, the trombone, the baritone, and the tuba. Both of them are very important instruments in just about every band, except, some like rock and roll bands don't use them, of course. But in school bands, concert band, marching band, pep band, jazz bands definitely have trumpets, and many jazz bands have clarinets. The orchestra, the pit orchestra for the school musical uses both clarinets and trumpets. The very advanced orchestra, like when you're a junior or senior in high school, and there's all kinds of really good violins and violas and cellos and basses, they also add flutes and clarinets and trumpets and trombones and stuff. So if you're really, really good and you're playing in a high school or a college that has a full orchestra, clarinet and trumpet are both very important instruments in those ensembles. Now, I should mention, intro to band kids, pay close attention. These are the only two options for intro to band, clarinet or trumpet, whether or not you're going to get your own. You may say to yourself, well, I'm not on free or reduced price lunch, so I have to go rent an instrument anyway, so I'll just go rent a saxophone. I'll go rent a flute. That's what I want to learn to play. No, sorry. We're only teaching clarinet and trumpet, period. So if you go rent one, go rent a clarinet or a trumpet. It's just like if you want to learn piano, oh, bring in my electric keyboard to intro to band. No, you won't. We do not teach piano or keyboard in intro to band. We teach clarinet and trumpet, period. Okay. So the really good news is if you get super good at clarinet later, maybe in like say 8th grade or in high school, you can switch to the saxophone or the flute or the oboe or the bassoon, or in some cases you'll play both. Like a lot of kids, they're super good at clarinet, so they play that in the concert band, but then in the jazz band they play sax because they're kind of the same and kind of different. If you get really good at trumpet, a switch to any of the following is possible. Again, maybe in 8th grade when you get super good, or maybe in high school, something like that. The baritone, the tuba, the French horn. The trombone is quite a bit different, but there are trumpet players that have switched successfully to trombone if they're super good practicers and super good talented musicians. Don't even think about switching for months or even years. Don't think that, oh, at the end of the first try, I'll be good at the trumpet and I'll switch to the tuba. No, not likely at all. Just about impossible. Even after the first year. No, probably not. You'd have to get like amazingly good. Remember, intro to band kids, that you're expected to learn 2 years worth of material in your 1 6th grade year so that you'll be ready to start 7th grade band along with the kids that took 5th grade band. So you got to hustle, you got to learn, and switching really sets you back. So I would say maybe after your 7th grade year, you could think about switching, even if you're super good. All right, the clarinet uses a reed. You'll see that in that video with that former band director. It's a little piece of cane, actually, a little piece of bamboo cane. And you don't buzz it or anything. You just hold it exactly correctly in your mouth and just blow. The trumpet, as you will see in the trumpet video, uses a brass-style buzzing mouthpiece. Believe it or not, you actually buzz your lips like a rude Bronx cheer. You don't actually go, but you go into the mouthpiece, and that makes the sound. When you put the mouthpiece in the trumpet, that's what makes the sound. Now, the downside of that is you just do that for, just a minute or so, and your lips get really tired because they're not used to that. So you have to practice and practice and practice to build up your lips and your face muscles, what we call technically your embouchure. That word is over here. Clarinets have to build their embouchure too, because their lips and chin and cheeks and stuff aren't used to holding just like that, and they have to do that for long periods of time. Or just generically, we call that your chops. You got to build up your chops. So one of the reasons you have to practice is so you get good at the instrument, but another reason you have to practice a lot is to build your chops, to build up strength and endurance. They both use the same treble clef pitches. Every good boy does fine, an F, A, C, E, that you might have learned in elementary school. Maybe you learned them on recorder. The trumpet and the clarinet can play the same notes at the same time, and they will sound the same. When a saxophone plays the same written note as a clarinet or a trumpet, it doesn't sound the same. Same thing with a flute or a trombone. The trumpet player says, I'm playing a C. Why don't you sound like me? Because they're not using the correct type of music. But clarinets and trumpets both use the same written pitches at the same time. They will sound on the same note. The clarinet is very similar in many ways to the recorder. The left hand is on top, the right hand is down below, dum, 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 like that. Now, on the recorder, this was a B, and that was an A, and that was a G. On the clarinet, this is an E, and that's a D, and that's a C. But it's the same sort of thing. You cover the holes, and the more holes you cover, the lower it goes. A trumpet is not similar at all to the recorder, okay? It plays the same kind of notes, like, the second line is G and so on, and it'll sound the same notes as a clarinet, but playing it is completely different than the recorder. We have more trumpets than clarinets available. I'm not sure why that is. If we're just short one or two, I can probably get an extra one from another school or something like that. But if we have all 45 kids say, I want to play the clarinet, well, I'm going to have to say, well, no, a bunch of you have to play the trumpet because we don't have 45 clarinets. So try to be flexible. If you don't get your first choice, try to be flexible and accept your second choice. If that's just absolutely unacceptable, you're going to go crazy and jump off a cliff. Talk to me or have your adult talk to me, and we'll figure out, okay, if it's just one kid that I really have to go find one instrument for, I can do that. Neither one is very heavy. They're not like the great big saxophones and trombones and baritones. I mean, some of those are huge, and tuba weighs a ton. Let me see, way out there. The clarinet's about like so in the case, and the trumpet's maybe a little bit bigger. The clarinet will fit into a lot of backpacks, depending on how many books you have in there and other stuff. The trumpet usually not, unless you have a really big backpack and nothing else is in there. The clarinet cannot get wet. The mouthpiece, of course, will get wet because you're sticking it in your mouth, but the whole rest of the clarinet, if it gets wet, big trouble, and it also ruins the case. And that's why it's a good idea to have it in your book bag, your backpack, if it's raining or something like that. And some kids just have to put it under their coat, get a ride home. If you ride the bus, you're in pretty good shape. The trumpet can get wet, the trumpet itself, but if you get the case soaked, the case tends to kind of fall apart, and it's really not the best thing. There's a few things that can get ruined on the trumpet if it stays wet for a long time. Of course, it will mold if it stays wet for a long time. So do not get the clarinet wet. You got to protect it. The trumpet, you still don't want it to get wet, although it's not as big a deal. The clarinet might be a little bit easier at first if you were good at the recorder, because it does function very much in the same way. But later on, it gets much harder than recorder when you have to learn to play the really low notes and the really high notes. Wow, clarinet gets much more difficult, particularly if you don't practice. If you don't practice, you are not going to learn how to do it. A lot of kids never practice on recorder and they were still able to play hot cross buns. Yeah, hot cross buns is like the first or second lesson, and then you move on from there in intro to band. So like you got to practice. The trumpet is probably harder at first than the clarinet because it's not like the recorder. And it's never easy, especially for high notes. You've got to build your chops and practice every day to learn how to do it and to build up your endurance, okay? Both of them are impossible unless you practice, practice, practice. Some kids go, well, what's the easy one? You want to play something easy? Play the radio. No band instrument is easy, okay? And by the way, some kids go, well, I really, really want to play the drums. Hey, nobody's going to stop you from playing the drums. You can play the drums at home all you want, or in church, or with your family, or hanging out with your bros, whatever. I'm not going to say you can't play the drums. What I'm saying is, in intro to band, you're going to play clarinet or trumpet. Those are the two options in intro to band. All right, here's how you get one. If you're on free or reduced price lunch, you fill out some forms. Your folks have to say, yeah, it's okay for Mr. Easter to double check this and make sure you do get free or reduced price lunch. And you fill out a contract, you and your folks, that you promise to take care of it and bring it back and bring it to school when you should. And you'll be responsible for it. If it gets wet or gets broken or gets lost, you have to be responsible for it. If you injure it because you were careless or you did it on purpose, then you have to pay for repairs. Sometimes, just a little thing goes wrong and you didn't do anything. It just happened, and then the school pays for that repair. If you're not on free or reduced price lunch, the simplest way to get a decent one is to rent it from a music store. Okay, it's like, I don't know how much it is. Years ago it was like $30 or $40. Maybe it's $50 now. It's not too terrible. There are music stores around. There's one in Osseo called A to G Music. There's a real good big one, not very far at all from Northview, called Schmidt Music. You can rent it wherever you want. It's best to rent it at a store not too far away, because if it needs repair and you're renting it from the store, you just take it back to the store and they fix it. If you rent it online, now you have to ship it to them across the country, wait for them to fix it, and then ship it back, and all that time you don't have an instrument. So it's best to rent one from a store somewhere in the Twin Cities. There's more than just those two, but those two I think are the closest. Well, there's another one up in Anoka that's not too far away. All right, besides the instrument, clarinets, you'll need some more supplies. I think they cost about $10 to start with. Trumpets, you'll need like $5 worth of supplies, valve oil. You do, from time to time, have to buy more of that stuff. It's not going to be a lot of money. If your parents are asking, it's like, maybe $20 for the whole year, or maybe $50. It just depends. Like if you lose your valve oil, you have to buy some more. It's like, I don't know, $5 or something. It's not too bad, but you can't be irresponsible. And students have to be responsible for those costs. If those are a big problem, you just see me privately and we figure it out. Trumpets, after you play for a while, there's like actually water in the instrument, because your breath has a lot of water in it, and the water is condensing inside that cold brass instrument. It's sort of like going, and then you get water vapor on the window. It's true that there's a little bit of spit in it. Most people call it spit. I'll spit. Okay, you can think of it that way because you sure wouldn't want to drink it. But now that with COVID-19, we don't want those germs all over the place. So at school, I'm going to give you a little, what they call a puppy pad. You can teach puppies to pee on them, and then they can go to the bathroom in the house, sort of like a cat box. And you'll just empty your water key, is what it's technically called. A lot of people call them spit valves, onto that, and then throw it away rather than putting it on the floor. Every student is going to need a music stand or prove they have one. If you have to buy one, they're about $10. Let me write that in the thing there. Okay, so if you have more questions, you can ask me, you can email me, or put it in a chat, or ask me at school, or come to office hours. That's all I'm going to, there's much more obviously to learn about the trumpet and the clarinet, but that's all I'm going to say for now.